the name game is, right? Who do I know? Who do I know that might be looking to buy or sell? That's a good game to play. You just go through everybody's name in your database. You go through everybody that you get a number for. Everywhere you go, you pass out your card and you ask that famous question, who do you know looking to buy or sell? That's how you play it. That's how you play the name game, man. And get that business, because business is out there.
I just closed 5 days escrow.
5-day escrow?
Yeah, we closed for 5 days.
You got your check in 5 days?
Not check, but it's closed.
Need to check.
Okay, how did that happen? What happened, man? Give us a little.
It's a cash buyer.
It's my brother.
Yeah.
Keith, thanks for telling us.
That's why I do some facts, man. Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Brother. Anybody that help us, buy and sell some real estate, it doesn't matter. And so brothers count just like cousins count, all that counts. All right, well, good for you. I got a listing. Hopefully, I'm gonna be coming on the market here real soon. We kind of wrote it up. I really have the listing, but they want to do some things to the property. And again, I'm just waiting for them to kind of do these little minor things to the house before I put it on the market. And this is a smaller house. I sold them this house about a year ago. It's a little old 2-bedroom, 1-bath house over in North Hollywood. And it was a REO at the time. What you doing?
I'm trying to sit over
I thought she's coming to give me a hug or something, man. It's just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but it was a flip when they bought it. And then my client, looked at it and said, oh, I can't wait to get this house because, again, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And so I just went and saw it, maybe 2 weeks ago. And, man, she made that house look great. It looks better than it was. And like I said, it was a flip when she bought it, her and her husband. So now they want to sell it. And, again, we got it listed at $412,000. So it's on a big lot. It's one of those houses where you got all the land in front of the house, and you really don't have no backyard. But it makes it a little bit more private. It's gated, and again, everything in the house is new. The neighborhood's real nice little neighborhood, little pocket over in North Hollywood. The streets are like, let me see, I would say it's like Victory to Hunger. You know that area? A little south of Victory, little east of Tujunga. Very nice. Borders almost Burbank. Yeah, exactly. But real nice property. Again, guys, I'm telling you about it because I like you. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't say nothing. But it's about $412,000. If you got somebody, you better let me know because I'm trying to sell it because it's not on the market and I'm gonna have it on the market soon. North Hollywood. North Hollywood. Anna, you was late. And why? Tell us why.
I'm sorry, I was late.
We're glad you made it. I'd rather you be Anna late than the late Anna. All right, and you got your head done. Where you going today?
I'm going everywhere.
Huh? Is she all jazzed up? Yeah, looking good. Okay.
I come later, you working.
Hey guys, look, I'm killing a little time. I'm interested in hearing what Mel got to say. So unless anybody else want to talk about their listings or their wants, their needs, I'm gonna go ahead and let Mel come on and do this thing. All right? Don't forget to sign the sign-in sheet. Come on, let's put some energy in the room. Come on, Mel, come on in here. All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, I just wanted to give some brief updates, and one is not so brief, about some really significant changes that are going on in our industry. We have some folks online who are some of our sales associates who are logged in with us on GoToMeeting, so hopefully they can hear everything that we're saying. Liz, you want to give a brief update?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've done this before, but I figured today was a perfect opportunity because we've got a bigger crowd. So thank you all for coming. So as a transaction coordinator, it's really important that I get all the information on your sales report. It saves me time so that I can help you and save you more time. Just even the sales date and the close of escrow date, putting that on there is helpful. And also, if I'm going to be docu-signing stuff like disclosures to your clients, I need both. If there's more than one client, I need both emails, not just one. I need all information in order for me to help you. So help me help you. I want to save you guys time so you can spend more time cultivating more business once you're in escrow. So I'm here. You guys are doing really good right now, and I'm proud of you all, and let's have a really great summer.
Thank you. Okay, Rodney, did we introduce our new member of our team?
Alex did it so well, I think she ought to do it again.
Okay. I'm so excited the way we're growing. We got some young people who are coming on board. Jazz Marie had been with us for about 3 months as a student intern, and she's taken a position with helping me as my assistant, no longer as a volunteer, but as a person who's being compensated for her great work. So I'm excited about that. We have a couple other students who are trying to get their schedules together for the summer. They'll be joining us, and my hope is to have them help you with some of your research and some of the things you're trying to do as you grow your business. So Sally is excited. I'm excited that you're here as well, and Jazz Marie has been really just an excellent addition to our company. If you haven't gone online, take a look at the website. There are still some glitches in it that we're trying to iron out. Is SOSIC here as well?
Yeah, she's on.
Okay, some glitches that we're trying to iron out, and we should be able to iron them out within the next week. The back office is available again on the website, so you can go online and get all the forms that you need to look at that are pertinent to your transactions. So they'll be on available for you too. Jazz Marie will make sure you all get your login information for that. Okay. All right. So some of the information we talked about, we asked all of you to get us your bios and your photos, and most of you really cooperated, gave us your bios and your photos. You don't want to see that. That's me. Okay. Back to team. So we have a blog. We have property search, which is Google Map version of it, so you can actually see the sidewalks, the curves, the up and down, sideways. And here's some of the information. This is just a sampling of what the website looks like. The photo, we talk about your country of origin, the languages that you speak, and a little bio, a script that you wanted to share with our sales associates. Now, I noticed that, Nairi, I don't think your photo is on here. We had asked, you gave us your photo some time ago. Somehow, our webmaster has not been able to put that on there, and some of the photos are not there yet.
Oh, the previous
Site had it on there.
Had the picture.
Right, we have your photo. Yeah, they just haven't gotten it up. So just kind of walk you through some of this, some of the folks who are on now and up and running, and some of those who do not have photos. Now, I read your bio's there, but your photo is not there. And Lucky's there, and I think everyone else. So if you're missing something with respect to your bio, please get it to us. Jazz Marie is our is responsible for our social media presence, and she will help you get the information up. Sally is very smart when it comes to research and social media too, so she's going to be there to support Jazz Marie. Okay. On the career page, for those of you who have friends or relatives who want to get a real estate license, we have a couple of companies that we're working with who has made available for them for us. Oops. Hang on a second, it's taking time to load. Access to take classes online at a discounted rate than what you could have gotten otherwise, okay? So on the career page, we have a number of things, which include some of the things that we're about, our company vision, and the like. So with that, I'm going to move off of this and go into what we're going to be talking about today, all right? Can I do that? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's see if I can open up this site here. We're going to do a quick pop quiz here. All right, and let's see if... Oh, it's already open? This one here?
Did you scroll?
Over? There you go. Thank you, Jazz Marie. Hi, Sosa. We have both our escrow officers. Come on in, ladies. Why don't you reintroduce yourselves and tell them why they should do business with you?
I'm Jeanette. This is Sunset. And you should do business with us because we're right down the hall. And if you ever need anything, just walk right over there because we're there for you.
And you guys have to,
we're here.
and you guys have to try me at least once, and then decide if you're gonna give it to me or to Jeanette.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. Our escrow officers have, a lot of years of experience, 3 decades of experience. And Sosik speaks a couple different languages. What languages do you speak?
English, Armenian, Arabic, a little Spanish.
I can manage Spanish, so.
Yeah. So, they're multi-talented, and they're very experienced, and they're very nice people too. I think you'll like doing business with them. We also have available for you mobile notary services so that you can have your clients don't have to rush over here to meet. We can go meet with them. So there's a lot of great things that they offer. For those of you who want to do your escrows and do them online, we have the capability for you to do your escrows online too and access them online. Okay, I have the ladies here because there's some technical things that we're going to be going through, and I want to just make sure that you know that they have a good handle on what's going on. They've been at this a long time. They've seen multiple changes go on in the real estate industry, and this is a huge change that's impacting all of us. As you know, I'm an NAR director, and last a couple weeks ago I was at a meeting, and a number of meetings in Washington, D.C., in which they talked a lot about some of these changes that are going on. So starting back in 2013, there was this law that was put into effect, these regulations that were put into effect. It started back actually in 2011. 2 of our non-favorite politicians introduced a bill that's really hurting a lot of folks now. The idea behind it was very good. The idea was to protect consumers and make it easier for them to compare the cost that they were paying for fees. But some of the collateral damage is going to be difficult for us to accept and work with, but we're going to have to because it's the law of the land. We have no choice. The bill is called the Dodd-Frank bill. Barney Frank and Christopher Dodd, guess what? Both of them are out of office now. And so we may be a little bit better off because of them. And they have some great ideas, but some of the things that they came out with was this reform in the RESPA law. So I'm going to have a pop quiz. I'm going to ask you guys, when does this new regulation go into effect?
August 1st.
August 1st. You all got, some of you got it right. It's an open book test. August 1st, right? August 1st is when this new regulation goes into effect. Now, I just want to ask some of you, just one at a time, what does GFE stand for? Anybody know?
I got it.
Yes.
Good faith estimate.
Good faith estimate.
I heard it from Anna.
Okay, very good. And HUD 1, who knows what a HUD 1 is?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
HUD 1 is estimated closing statement
Housing or revival
for the housing and urban development
development.
Okay, very good. And
guidelines.
very good. What's TILA? T-I-L-A.
Truth in Lending Addendum.
Yeah, Truth in Lending Act. Truth in Lending Act. And all these acronyms going to have a big impact on your ability to do business and your ability to close transactions in a timely fashion. Truth in Lending Act has been around for a while. Good faith estimates have been around for a while. But what they're starting to do, they're going to change these things. These are regulations that are oversaw by a federal agency. It's not legislation anymore. These are the implementing acts for legislation. So a loan estimate. This is something that's really important for lenders. Any transaction that involves financing, whether it's a bank, a credit union, a savings and loans, anyone that provides financing and that does 5 or more loans a year are covered by this act. Okay, did y'all hear me? Who does it cover? Oh, you didn't hear me. Any transaction, residential transaction, 1 to 4 units, right, that involves financing where there's a loan involved. Credit union, a bank, savings and loan, any kind of institution, could be an insurance company. Some of the large loans are actually offered by insurance companies. This regulation is going to be a part of what needs to be complied with. The loan estimate. Anybody know what the loan estimate is? Okay. The closing disclosure. Hopefully by the end of the meeting you'll know what these are. Closing disclosure. Who knows what RESPA stands for? R-E-S-P-A. R-E-S-P-A. Not respect from Aretha Franklin. Right?
Real estate settlement, real estate settlement.
Yes. Yes.
Procedure Act?
Yes. Yes.
Yay!
Okay, that's what it is. And so RESPA is going to cover a lot of different things. And so here's a part of the open book answers to your questions, or to the question that I asked you. So the main problem with these new forms and rules from agents' perspective is the potential for what? Delays. All of you know that it's rare that a transaction that's involved with the lender closes on time. Now, if you're like Virgil and you have relatives who can buy all cash, you close escrow in 5 days, right? But if you have to deal with the bank or any other kind of financial institution, you're not going to be able to close your transaction in 5 days, okay? You want to sit here? Can you slide this around for her? Thank you. Can you help her with that, Virgil? Thank you. All right, so it's these rules are going to impact all of us. So some of the possible delays in processing the loan would be a challenge. Sometimes you may have to think about, preparing ahead of time, proactively negotiating extensions. You're going to have to talk to your lender. Any minor changes or major changes will be impacted by these rules. And so we're going to go through a number of question and answers. We'll have the question and answers on our website, on the back end of the website for the administrative side. So if you log in, you'll be able to look at the full question and answers that I'm going to go through today. I am not going to cover every detail today, but I'm going to try to go through some of the important questions that are being asked by consumers and also being asked by realtors and agents who are going to be involved in a transaction. So you need to be careful, you need to be cautious in the way you prepare your purchase agreement. You need to make sure that that box, that I think it's on page 8. How many of you have written an offer, RPA, residential purchase agreement offer, and you have not filled in that page 8, which shows the broker information on there? I know oftentimes when I have a transaction, I prepare the offer, or I have my staff prepare it for me, I present it, it gets executed, and then the next thing you know, the escrow officer is saying, well, can you fill out page 8? Or the transaction coordinator is saying, will you fill out page 8? And so I've been, bad at it myself too. So I want to encourage you to please make sure you fill out page 8, because page 8 will have the contact information for all the parties, and if you don't have it, it's going to delay your escrow closing. Did y'all hear me? If you don't fill out that page, it's going to delay your escrow closing because all the full disclosure will not be able to be prepared. All right, so if I can go back to, let's see. Jasmine,
Real quick,
yeah, sure.
On page 8, when we filling out that broker information, sometimes, it does ask for the broker BRE number.
Right, we have it.
But is it okay to put the broker ID number?
What's the difference?
One of them, is a state number, but I think must be the association give you a broker number.
No, each agent has their own Cal BRE number. Every agent has their own, but there's also a broker Cal BRE number. You need to put both.
Right.
You need to put both.
But when you look up an agent, let's say you don't know who this agent is,
right?
Fill in that much information you can for that agent, and on their, I guess, office information, a lot of times they won't have the broker BRE number. It'll just have an office ID or office code number. You never know.
It's not the code number that they're asking about.
I understand that, but if you don't have the BRE number, is it okay to put that broker ID number?
No, it's not.
Right.
It's each broker.
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand, but you don't like my answer. But the answer is no, it's not okay.
So basically, we have to call that office and ask for their broker ID number.
Which I'm trying to avoid, and that's why I'm asking that
Aren't you on the
question.
website?
Yeah, the Cal BRE has it, but sometimes the broker's name is not the same name that, like our company, our broker name is Realty Advantage, right? It's Mel Wilson and Associate. It's Realty Advantage doing business as Mel Wilson and Associate Realtors. Yes, William.
Okay, two things. One, to answer Roger things, it says CABRE license, so nothing else will do in that blank but that. The other thing was the,
Office.
just a minute. Finding it. Roster on SRAR, just put in the office. It shows
It
up.
don't always show up. It don't
It
show up.
doesn't show the
Not the
BRE?
broker, not always for the broker. It will for the agents almost 100% of the time.
No, you look up the company.
I'm telling you, it doesn't show it all.
Actually, yeah.
Well, then I guess
I've done
then
it
you have to
before, too.
take that second step.
Yeah,
and
the
go
next-
to
the next
go
step-
to the DRE,
No,
BRE and.
The next step is, if you go to the SRAR roster, you can look up any agent who is a member of SRAR. But what if the agent is not a member of SRAR? What if they're a member of no local association? They may be a realtor, MLS member only, right? So, but if they have a broker, you can go to the CalBRE site. You can look up that agent information. And on there, it says who the broker of responsibility or responsible broker is, and you can get that broker number from the CalBRE site without calling the agent. Does that help you?
It does.
That's a firm number, right?
No, firm number has to do with the local association of realtors, not the CalBRE. All right, so let me move on if I can. The reason behind the RESPA is to eliminate abuses in mortgage and lending and all that. So let's kind of go through some of the Q&A. All right, some of the important things that you all want to hear, and hopefully you won't leave just because I give this answer to you right now. All right, don't tune out. Okay, advice for agents and brokers. Question: will agents have additional legal obligation under the new law? The answer is what?
Yes.
No.
It's an open book test. What does it say? Read. Read.
I disagree.
No.
Oh, that's your opinion, but this came from a lawyer. So are you a lawyer?
I like disagreeing with lawyers.
Okay. All right. All right. So the
Lawyers
answer is
don't know everything.
no, they don't, but they know law. And this one here was paid to tell us this. Okay. All right. So this came from the National Association of Realtors. They hired a large firm who specializes in RESPA rules, and they came out with these question and answers. Okay. So the answer is there is no. Oh, I already lost one just because I already gave the answer. Oh my gosh, I was afraid of doing that. I knew I should have done that until the end. All right, so the answer is what?
No.
No, not legally, but but there are going to be some ramifications for you, some legal impacts. Question: what should an agent do differently in light of the new forms and rules? Y'all read that? Huh? You should be aware. There are going to be what? Delays. Maybe you need to prepare for an extension in advance. Perhaps your buyer can pick up the closing statement themselves, and that will save you some time. You need to be aware. Now, remember this, you're not a lawyer. You cannot be giving legal advice. If your clients start asking you legal questions, you say, I cannot answer you that question because I'm not a lawyer, because you don't want to get nailed for practicing law. If you give bad advice, and there's a court action later on, you're going to be held liable for that bad advice. So please do not give legal advice. And you might refer them back to your lender and say, talk to your lender. Get it off your back. You don't want to put it on your back. You might want to call the hotline, the legal hotline for the California Association of Realtors, and you might ask the question and you get the answer yourself, but that doesn't mean you give them that advice. You want to know yourself so you don't feel like a dummy, right? But you don't want to give legal advice. You all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so if I can move on to a couple other questions. All right, so effective what date? What's going to happen on August 1? The good faith estimate will go away. The HUD one will go away. They're going to replace them with these two other forms, the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. Did you all hear me? All right, so we're going to go into some scenarios as to what happens with something that has already opened escrow. We talked about Dodd-Frank earlier and who they are. These are Christopher Dodd, a U.S. Senator, I think from Connecticut near Bridgeport, and Barney Frank from Massachusetts, Boston area. All right, so let me go into some of the Q&A. When does it go into effect? Let's say it again.
August 2015.
All right. So what about transactions where the loan application was received before August 1? What do you think?
I would think that it would still apply.
So good.
It will be withdrawing or canceling.
I would think that they'd have to redo it on August 1st.
Say that again?
I would think that they would have to redo it after August 1st.
You would think that, but I don't think you're right. Okay?
Okay, I don't mind not being right.
All right, so you see
I
here.
like to argue with attorneys.
All right, well, I'm glad I'm not one. It says here, as the application received prior to August 1 or consummated, withdrawn, and canceled, then the good faith escrow will no longer be used, okay? Are you with me? Did that answer your
I have
question?
a question now,
Yes.
on, replacing hardware. What about short sale? Normally when you submit your documents, hardware is always there, no happening.
Well, they're going to have a loan estimate. They're going to have two other forms that are replacing the HUD-1. There'll still be a closing statement or a settlement statement. They're not using the same form that they used to use, but there'll still be a form that the escrow officers and settlement closing officer will have to prepare. Okay? That help you? All right, so there will be a period of overlap, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
There will be a period of overlap. So sometimes some of these things are going to get a little wiry. You're trying to figure out how to work this out. Your best bet is to call the California Association of Realtors legal hotline. The phone number is 213-739-8286. What's the phone number? 213-739-8286. How do I know that? Because I call them a lot. Okay? All right, 213-739-8286. All right? That gets you directly to the attorneys here. What if a creditor would like to use new forms prior to August 1? What is the answer?
They can't.
They can't. Okay, so you can't get ahead of it. You have to wait. All right, what types of transactions do the new forms apply to? What does it say here?
Forms will be required.
Ooh, sorry about that.
The forms will be required in most closed-end consumer credit transactions, which are secured by real property.
Right, there you go. Federally related transaction. And you might say, well, my transaction is not federally related. If your bank is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? If you have a credit union, most of them all are regulated by some federal agency. Currency controller, FDIC, there's always some kind of federal tag in these lending institutions. So you just need to be aware, just assume that any transaction you're going to do is going to be under this new covering for a residential property, okay? Are there exemptions?
Yes.
Yes. Here are some, who knows what a HELOC is?
Home equity lines.
Hey, well, somebody's reading. There you go. Home equity line, right? So if you're talking about a home equity line, is it exempt?
No.
I think it is. It says yes. Read.
Yeah,
It's an open book test. It's not a guess test. It's an open book test.
Yeah.
Right here. Transaction involving equity line work. We said earlier, okay, I'm glad, you're just not afraid. You're fearless. I love it. Okay. Are there any exemptions from the coverage?
Yes.
Yes. It says yes right here, right? And what are they? HELOC and what else? Reverse mortgages. Okay? Some of us have reverse mortgages, right? So these transactions are covered, are not covered. What about a mobile home? No. Exempt, right?
Yeah, they're all exempt.
All right. What forms are required?
Yeah.
You all got it?
Oh, so again, go back to
What's that?
again, go back to the
Yeah,
previous
we
box.
have one until disclosure.
Yep.
Fix the man.
Is there any exemption for lenders who make 5 or fewer loans secured by a dwelling in a year? I've already given you the answer. What's the answer? Yes. So if a lender, so that tells me that if my name is Mel Castrita and I have a loan that I'm making to somebody and I'm selling them my property and I'm only doing 1 or 2, hey, I think I'm exempt, right? But if I do 5 or more, guess what? I'm not exempt. So then I'm like in the business, right? I'm in the business of financing. I'm not exempt. Are you all with me? Okay.
And what about hard money loan?
Hard money loans, well, is it a residential property?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What if the loan is a high rate loan? Oh, gosh. that what you're talking about?
Yes.
You are just ahead of me. You're a smart guy over there, right? Okay, so hard money loans are covered too, right? Yes? Okay. Does a seller who sells to a buyer with a seller carryback have to use the new forms? Uh-oh, too quick. There's no express exclusion for seller carryback if the seller qualifies as a creditor discussed earlier, right? And I think it talks about 5 or more loans. The loan estimate. This is one of the forms that's replacing the good faith estimate, the loan estimate. Okay? What's replacing the good faith estimate? Loan estimate. Okay? So that's a new form we're going to have to get used to seeing, and I think I have some examples somewhere of what they are, and I'll make sure those go on the website too. Okay? So the escrow or the closing officer is still going to have to prepare these documents. They just have different names and different formats. It wasn't about a few years ago that escrow they changed the whole HUD-1 process. Remember? It was very confusing. Yeah, it was very confusing for a while until we hired Jeanette. Then it became less confusing. It was saying, oh, this is how it works. Before we had escrow officers like, oh, right? Thank you, Jeanette. Right, okay. When must the loan estimate be delivered?
No later than the third day after the application.
Okay, there you are. Can a mortgage broker provide a loan estimate on the credit behalf?
Yes.
There you go. So you see here? So are you all getting this? All right, so what's an application? Clearly defined, it's not clearly defined by the regulation, but some folks will interpret an application to mean something that has its consumer's name on it, the income, social security number, property address, appraisals, different things like this. Then they would declare that to be an application. The application triggers what's going to be happening, okay? When does the clock start ticking? So we're going to go through some things here. Is this helping you guys at all?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about some of the things, some of the scenarios that I think will occur that could cause your transaction to delay. Do you want to tell us one of the things you mentioned, Sosik, or do you want me to go over some of them? You mentioned something earlier today about HOA.
Yeah, I was talking about.
Stand up louder and speak louder.
When it's a condo or units, like we have to order the HOA docs, usually that takes like more than a week, sometimes 10 days, between the time we send the check out to them, FedEx, of course, they ask, and then getting it back. So we're not going to have the fees, like the dues for the monthly dues or the transfer fees or stuff like that. So if you guys can ask the sellers in advance and just have an idea, because we can always estimate more, not less.
But any change though, even if you estimate more and there's a change, there triggers a 3-day right of rescission. You guys all know that, even though she's being smart, estimating more so the buyer doesn't get upset at the last minute or the seller doesn't get upset, but still that's going to trigger a 3-day waiting period. Y'all hear me? All right, give me an example of something that happens all the time in a transaction. Thank you, Sosik. That happens all the time in a transaction that happens usually towards the end that impacts the HUD-1. Anybody?
Seller's gonna give the buyer credit because something's wrong with the property.
There you go. How often does that happen? It happens a lot. Buyer went by the property, they did their inspections, they came back, they did the walkthrough. All of a sudden the grass is brown. And it was plush green before, right? And all of a sudden now the grass is brown. And that buyer is saying, you know what? I bought this house with green grass and I'm not going to close escrow until I get my green grass back, right? And so the seller's saying, well, you know what? We got a water shortage here. We can't be watering this yard anymore. And so what's going to happen?
You should get some green spray paint.
There you go. Green spray paint, okay. Or you may get some green money, right? Right? And that may be in the way of a credit, right? And that's going to go on the closing statement, right? So that could change the closing date. I can think of a scenario where I have a buyer who's buying a property and a seller. Maybe it's Virgil's listing, and I wrote an offer on Virgil's listing. My buyer wants to buy the property. All of a sudden, last minute, my buyer says, you know what? We did our walkthrough, and they didn't fix that dishwasher. And so I would say in the past, Mr. Buyer, no problem. I'll buy a home warranty policy. It's a $60 deductible. You get a brand new dishwasher. Guess what? That's gonna trigger a 3-day, right? Maybe a certain situation where, let me give, Keith. Keith has a transaction. Keith represents the buyer, I represent the seller. The seller says, you know what, I'm moving all my things from here. We're moving to Carmel next week. We have a mover, they're already lined up, and at the last minute, guess what? The HOA came back late, right? Now, the mover was scheduled to be here on June the 3rd, and the seller had no money other than the money coming from escrow to pay the mover, and the mover is saying, you know what, my trucks are ready, but guess what? I can't bring my trucks here until I get my deposit. Guess what's going to happen now? Escrow is not going to close. Now that seller who had all their things packed up, ready for that mover, now the mover said, if I can't come there on June 3rd, I can't get back until June 10th. Can you imagine something like that happening?
Yes.
That's why we have to be proactive. We have to think ahead because these things do happen in real time and in real life. Real time and real life. So we need to make sure we're aware of these things beforehand, and we have to be proactive, guys. We definitely have to be proactive. Can anybody else think of another scenario?
What about if the broker gives the credit?
Guess what? Goes on HUD-1?
It goes in the hard one.
Yep. 3-day extension. And I can imagine, I know some cultures love to negotiate. Anybody ever deal with people with cultures that love to negotiate even after the transaction's been consummated? They love to negotiate, right? Anybody know folks like that? I have a lot of folks like that. They love to negotiate even to the last minute. And guess what? When that negotiation, when they think they have leverage, and now some of these folks, they're going to learn that there's a 3-day right of rescission. Now, that buyer may start threatening, well, you know what, I'm not going to close escrow. And they know the seller has to get out of town, right? They know the seller has to move. And they're saying, well, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to put all my money in escrow until this happens, right? So that's going to put a lot of pressure on agents. It's going to put pressure on sellers, right? And the sellers are going to be angry with us. If we don't tell them ahead of time, hey, realize this, there's a new law, a new regulation that's in place now, August 1, these things may happen. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we need to make some provisions in case these things do happen. If you don't tell them in advance, they're going to be angry with you. Why didn't you tell me? Why am I paying you 6%? You said, well, you're not. You only pay me 5%. Okay. Why am I paying you 5%? Right? We need to let people know in advance, even if it's not going to happen. Because if we don't, they're going to hold us accountable, and that's our referral for the next transaction. Yes, William?
Well, I already jumped to potential solutions to deal with what you just spoke about.
Go ahead.
The buyer wants to negotiate at the last minute. From the get-go on your offers, just write them with a 2-week rent back after the close.
Okay.
You know, that eliminates the buyer being able to have that power to control the seller on a closing, because the seller's not moving until 2 weeks after he closes. Then he can call his mover, plenty of time. Everybody knows that the date everybody moves is 2 weeks after the close.
Well, that could happen.
So I just see that right away as something that probably would be used more and more for me and my sellers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But because I went through some of those last minute negotiations on Encino, as we know.
Yeah. So these things can happen. You need to think ahead. One of the ways you think ahead is think of an extension. You think of a rent back, but ultimately the closing is going to be impacted by any change on the settlement statement, right? The closing is going to be impacted by any change on the closing statement or the settlement statement. So think ahead, prepare your clients. I think this is a good time for you to sit down with the seller, because a lot of sellers don't think that the agents bring much value to them. They're wondering, why am I paying this high commission? I'm paying you $30,000. They don't realize that you split half of it with the other agent on the other side. You split a percentage of it with your broker. They don't get that part. They just think $30,000 is going to you in your pocket. That's what they think,
Yeah, but
right?
I have to explain to them.
You must explain to them that you are bringing value to them. And some of them will have nightmares because they didn't use you. And that brings you in an opportunity to get them to be your client on the next transaction, because some people don't think we're worth it. I was driving down my street the other day, and I saw help you sell sign. Help you sell is usually a seller who thinks they can do it all themselves,
Sunday.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they think they can do it all themselves, and some can. But most of them, the disclosures, the form, they're not exempt either. Those laws and those regulations still clearly impact them too, even though they are not a realtor. They could be a for sale by owner. So now you can bring something to the table when you talk to a for sale by owner. Did you know, Mr. For sale by owner, that if any change occurred in the last few days of your transaction, that could delay, that could cause a right of rescission? And they may not know what a right of rescission is. Did anyone know what a right of rescission is? Yes. Oh, Billy, no. Let somebody else answer.
I think Keith said he knew.
Go ahead, Keith.
No, I didn't say. So you can cancel the agreement within 3 days.
Yeah, well, it could be 3 days, but in this, right?
It's
Yeah.
the right to cancel.
Yeah, you're right to cancel. Now, a buyer could say, I'm going to cancel, and they can make a decision if they want to cancel based on some change, but that does not relieve them of the liability. If the seller has exposure, if the seller is going to be losing money or could be at risk of losing money, even though the buyer says, I'm going to cancel, that seller is still going to be legally liable, and a good buyer, a good seller is going to have an attorney who come in right away and say, you know what, you have the right to rescind if you wish, but I have a right to sue you because you're causing me damage. I was moving across the way and I'm losing this transaction. I'm buying this beautiful house on the beach in Santa Monica, and because you did not close on time, I lost my transaction. I was making $300,000 profit on that property, and now I'm losing it. I'm suing you. So even though they have the right to rescind, that does not give them relief from the legal right to perform. There's something called specific performance. You all have heard of that, right? All right. So, okay, I'm going to cut it off and ask if there are any other questions. Any questions? All right.
So in a nutshell, Mel, anything done to the estimated statement triggers a 3-day time frame.
Right.
Anything.
Well, anything that's on that HUD one that's financial, yes. And I think all the HUD ones or all the closing statements have financial issues, so, right?
So you get a HUD in the beginning, it says X, Y, and Z. 15 days into this transaction, now we got to give some credit. Like you said, once you decide that seller's gonna pay some credits, now we got a 3-day delay because of that.
That's right, and that's why you should get all these things done early, not later. Because if you have a 45-day, 30-day escrow, it's not going to be a big deal because you have plenty of time to have that 3 days. That 3 days is well within your closing period, right? But if you wait, these things happen when we wait to the last moment. And sometimes these things are out of our control, and some of these things are definitely within our control. But if we decide to pay for a home warranty policy, for example, because we're trying to preserve the transaction, or if we get the seller to pay for a home warranty policy, or here's a situation, you got a lender that really works with your buyers, and that lender says, you know what, I was going to give your buyer 4% interest, but I can give your buyer 3.75, or I can give your buyer a $3,000 credit. And your buyer is struggling to get money, right? So you say, okay, give the buyer a $3,000 credit because they're going to be asking for my money, right? So you're going to say, give the buyer a $3,000 credit. Guess what? 3 days. That's why the key thing is just being proactive, being ahead of it. And if you're ahead of it, you have time. But if you wait until the last moment, then you don't have the luxury of time anymore, and it may cause somebody to be upset. Yes, William.
Just a point of reference, the reality is, you got the 3-day right of rescission, but remember, it's going to take you a day to get the HUD 1 once it's changed. You have to have new HUD 1. It's going to take a couple more days for that. Just trying to say that it's not a 3-day thing, it's really a 5-day thing.
And we're talking about days that are not just calendar days, folks.
Business days.
Yeah, and sometimes some lending institutions, there's a question as to whether it covers Saturday or not. A lot of lending institutions are open on Saturdays now, but most of them are not open on Sundays, and most of them are not open on holidays. So it becomes tricky as to when does the 3-day clock start winding down? Is it, if you got the information on Friday, so does that cover Saturday or not? Right? So we don't want to have to get into those kind of nuances because it can be very stressful. How many of you had a transaction that was stressful? Yeah. Almost all of them are stressful. You got both hands. But we worked it out. We won over that client, didn't we?
So
Yes.
now, would it be an advantage to us if we, as a listing broker, change the, let's say, the contingency periods, reduce them, to where maybe get that home inspection done a little sooner, or you maybe, have them get the appraisal a little sooner?
Did y'all hear the question? The question is, would it be an advantage for us as a listing agent to negotiate, have tighter timelines on the inspections and the other contingencies? And the answer that I believe is yes. Yes. I try to do that anyhow. What I do, if I represent a buyer, I try to have longer timelines, but I'm going to rethink that now. If I represent a seller, I always try to have the tight timelines that are reasonable. Instead of giving I never go for a 17-day, unless it's a short sale and there's no big deal, right? And it's not an approval, right? But if it's a regular sale that involves cash or a lending institution, I'm going to give that buyer, I'm going to recommend to the seller that we give the buyer 5 or 7 days, not 17. 7 is the furthest I'll go out typically, because I want to remove any uncertainty as quickly as I can, right? And so that's what you need to do is tighten it up. You may get an offer that's a perfect offer and you want to accept it now because you're tired of that house. It's been a nightmare. It's been a rental that you've had forever. You're just tired of it. Guess what? You may want to counteroffer some timelines. You want to make sure that you get those things eliminated as quickly as possible. The other thing you need to do is you need to make sure you get the transfer disclosure statement. There's a statutory law in the state of California for a 1 to 4 unit property, residential, 1 to 4 unit, that says you must give the buyer the transfer disclosure statement within a certain timeline. If you don't, the contingency for the transfer disclosure statement does not start until the buyer receives that. So let's say, for example, you did a inspection, you did the appraisal, all those contingencies have been complied with, the buyer has removed those contingencies in writing, but you did not give the transfer disclosure statement. Guess what? That buyer can say, you know what? You didn't give me the transfer disclosure statement, so I still will exert my right to have my time to review that transfer disclosure statement. So I am not removing all my contingencies until I get that. And that could be a deal killer. Can you imagine what your seller would do if the loan contingency is removed, inspections, appraisal, but the TDS has not been removed? Your seller is going to look at you like, why did you get it to me? And maybe you did. Maybe you got it to the seller and they didn't fill it out and you didn't stay on them. Who do you think they're going to blame? Themselves? No. They're going to blame you.
Do you recommend to give it when they sign in the counter offer, right in there?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea for us as a listing agent, and most of us are listing agents, to get the transfer disclosure statement within a couple days from the time you take that listing. Remember this, you are not completing that transfer disclosure statement yourself. You're completing the agent visual inspection, right? Get it as quickly as possible, have it available, so any buyer who wants to make an offer, as quickly as the offer is accepted, you email it out. And you say, you put them on notice, this is your TDS, this is your seller questionnaire, this is your advent. Get it done as quickly as possible. I have a tendency to wait. I don't know if you guys do that. I have a tendency to wait until later. It's not a good tendency. It's not a good behavior. And I'm not saying this to be proud of. I'm just telling you, I got to change my behavior too. I'm not perfect. You're perfect?
No, I just have a comment to make.
Sure.
Seller property questionnaire, I hand to the seller at the time I take the listing. I say, please fill this out, write everything down, hold on to it, keep adding to it as you go along, because they do the TDS from this, basically. Now, this is Killamore. He filled out the TDS in his own hand, checked off the boxes, and then what a nice seller. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of explanation.
Yeah, they're really
big. So when it comes time for him to fill out that TDS today, it's going to be a piece of
You know what? That's a great thing that your seller took that time. Speaking of time, I'm out of time. It's 11 o'clock. Okay? So I want to thank you.
I have something to say.
Yes.
So, as of August 1st, if you're representing a buyer, we don't have the escrow, I would think it would be a good idea somewhere on the purchase contract to say they're charging the buyer that $3.99 fee.
Right.
Right there in the purchase contract, even if you have an addendum and you attach it, most escrow officers are not reading all these addendums that are being attached to the purchase contract.
Yeah, that's better.
You know, so it's better to put it on the actual purchase contract, so you can say, hey, right there, I put it there, how could you miss it?
Excellent.
I would actually like to see us have it in our Mel Wilson addendum with an initial box. And then just draw that to the escrow officer's attention on the
Yes,
opposite
Rodney.
side.
I'm sorry, William.
No, it's just, I like the idea of having it in our addendum rather than a separate piece of paper. I think it's easier, it looks like more official rather than something that just got added on to the closing costs.
Quickly as possible. Any questions before I close, because I'm 2 minutes over?
What $3.99 fee were you referring to?
The professional.
Professional service fee. We talked about that a couple months ago, and we talked about it again about 2 weeks ago.
So when you're on the buyer's end and it's somebody else's escrow, there's an extra $399 that the buyer has to pay?
Yes. There's a transaction, we call it professional service fee. When I took over this company in 2008, there was one. About a year and a half afterwards, I dropped it. I dropped it off. There was 2 reasons that I dropped it. One, the market was really tough and agents were struggling, and I didn't want them to struggle. And 2, there was a question as to legality, whether you could actually charge that fee or not. And so I, unlike all the other companies around here, I dropped it. We did a survey about 3 months ago, and we looked at all the major companies in the area, and we determined that not one of them had a absence of a professional service fee. It ranged anywhere from $250 to $495, something like that. Okay?
They don't call it professional fee, they call it commission based.
They call it commission, they call it compliance fee, they call it administrative service. They gave them all these different kinds of names. All right? And so you were here when I made the announcement, right?
Yeah. As an agent, my one question, because everybody calls this fee something different, is it would be really nice if we could come up with an explanation of why.
We did that last week, but I'm happy to go over it with
But I mean, it
you.
would be nice to have something written for all of us to be
Okay,
able to use.
we'll
You know,
do
it's
that.
like, it helps us to cover this, that, and the other thing that aren't normally, you know.
I'm
It's
happy
a
to.
tough question to answer. Even for me, after 33 years, I have a tough time explaining a professional services fee.
Sometimes
Paying a $20,000
to
commission.
pay, what's this?
Yeah, well,
Paying for this.
I'm over on my time. I'm happy to talk to each of you individually, but I know some folks come here, they set their time for 10 to 11. I'll do my best to stay on that. But let me see your hands if you have questions about it after, so I can go talk with you individually. Anybody here? Well, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
All right, so with that, is there any other comments before we close? All right, so this is going to be online. By the end of business day today, these Q&As will be online. You go to the website and you log in and you can download it or review it as frequently as you wish, okay? All right, thank you all for being here. Thank you, ladies, for helping me out, Jasmine. Let me take this review off, because it's, Jasmine Marie, can you sign off on this?
Yeah.
Otherwise, our voices are going to be.
Hey, you, I picked on you.